This one here is this is a composite. This is a prototype, by the way, but I'm making all the molds and toolings for it. So all this engineering that's kind of like Yamaha level-ish kind of stuff I've been doing on a bootstraps for the last several years. So weekends and evenings when I might be making molds and cooking up, playing with chemicals, I guess, just getting everything just so. But really, I want something that can be built, and if it was factory scalable, it could be done where it can have actual technicians making the parts, and the parts go together with precision, and also the engineering that goes into it. I mean, even though this top here, this is kind of I'm going to go off camera for one. So the top plates, I'm just, even the outer surfaces are wood, but the inner is like a carbon fiber, balsa sandwich. And I'm really trying to get them to really, have that sound. And I found that, even though we're mixing up composites, that even the wood matters still. It'll contribute to how it acts. So I have to be very selective about that still. So it's not like I'm taking plastic or something like that. It's very, very curated, like a mad chef with various ingredients. And it's just, that's what I'm doing. The benefit and upside is these things are not going to crack in various weather changes. That's the problem. If you notice that wood is kind of like a sponge. And if you take water to it, it'll swell up. And then when a couple of days go by, you notice it shrinks, it dries on your sink. It's like that. Well, what happens is when you have a sudden rain, it swells the wood up, and then when it gets super duper dry, desert California, like we're having right now, we have a little bit of that going on. It can crack, so that back and forth can be really hard on an instrument. The fingerboards are a different story altogether. When I started, and that's part that ties into this whole same story, the early fingerboards looked a bit like this. They had fret wire on them, just like a guitar. And unfortunately, I couldn't bend it to the right the right geometry without the frets wanting to fly out because of the physics of the whole thing. And so I was having to do all this horrible epoxying and gluing these things in, and I was never really 100% happy. I mean, a guitar is relatively easier to do because it's flatter, and you can just kind of level it all down and polish it up. And so I later went to a CNC process, which did not work out, by the way. Robots making wood patterns and stuff like that. That's great for big guitar factories and stuff, but this didn't do it for this thing. And this is a kind of an example, though, where I laid in, like a jewelry wire into it. Mm. Now, that's problematic, too. Not only was that 10 times the labor of a guitar to do that fingerboard, that might not actually, woods, you can sometimes get a dead spot or a loud spot because it's organic. And so it's unpredictable. You can go through zillion hours making something only to find out, oops, it's got this, and there's these wolf tones here, and all that kind of stuff. So I wound up one day, and it's typical of my rebellion against all the things snob foolery that kind of holds things back and progress, I suppose. I just was like, regardless of tradition, regardless of bias, regardless of material, what would the ultimate playing surface be like? And I just came up with this, this is like a composite part. Very strong, it's reasonably light. Best of all, it just has a very even sound, so every note is the right same volume. But the big deal is we don't chew up these expensive cello strings overnight, because when you have metal to metal, it'll wear. Now on a guitar, like a steel string guitar, that seems to eat up nickel frets. Okay, but if a classical nylon string guitar, you notice the 3 bass strings on the lower 3 are silver wrapped, and they get worn onto the frets, so the frets literally chew them up. So it's like that with cello strings. They're not meant for these things. The people who make those strings are not thinking some guy with an Arpeggione and metal frets is going to try to play this thing. In fact, you know, it's a chicken and the egg problem. What came first, the guitar viol or the guitar viol string? So, but then when I got, you know, I'm using these D'Addario helichords, which they have a nice little pluck to them as well. So you can kind of get a little of both out of it, which is kind of cool. But they also have a very fast bow attack, which I like. And we went through this whole process many years ago where we were in the studio and we were trying miking, putting up the big mics and, you know, hearing the difference between the different brands. So it was thinking, okay, it's going to be Tomastic, it's going to be Piastros, right? We just thought all the usual suspects. No, it actually, the D'Addario helichords won the day. And so I've been using them ever since. But the problem is, again, it was like they were getting chewed up. So I'd be getting these emails, my string keeps getting chewed up. And it's like $40 every time I pop it. You know, or it would not play in tune because the windings had come off. So this thing solved it. It just pretty much, you know, it made it so that I could make the things and get a nice, predictable result every time. And it really is a very wonderful playing experience.